Steve, what's good? What's good? What's good? Well, hope all of everybody's good. Hope all everybody is out of the weather. They put a couple of bans on us from driving, so stuck in the house. Woo! That hasn't happened in a while, but since COVID, basically, we weren't stuck in our houses like the way we are stuck now. We're not supposed to go out on the road. We're not supposed to drive except for essential drivers. Here on the East Coast, we got hit hard. We got hit hard. So we'll prepare for that. Uh, Before we get started, I want to say Clarissa did a thing last night. She beat the brakes off that girl. So I wonder what the sayings are behind that because that was pretty ugly. That was pretty ugly. Clarissa did a thing. She what we call back in the days. She put the whooping on her. She put the whooping on her. So I wonder how that's going to turn out, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what that brings about. A couple of other things in the news that I was watching. I was watching also this thing with the guy, and I just call him the guy for right now. And these tariffs that this building up, and if the people are going to get their money back. I don't think so. I don't think that now because of a lot of the things that Trump did that they're saying was illegal, but I don't think that those single, how can I say, family businesses that actually put out part of those billions of dollars are going to get their money back. And I just don't think it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But we'll just have to wait and see because the price of everything is going up no matter what. So if they're going to blame it on the tariffs, then I think that that's what's going to happen. They're going to blame it on the tariffs. But anywho, how's everybody doing? Uh, I am first before I go into it because I have to go into it. But I want to say that I hope the title of this broadcast doesn't throw people off because I don't mean it in like the East against the West. I don't mean it that way. I mean it as the East contributing and the West contributed to hip hop and the time frames in which each contributed. So one thing that I want people to understand is in the 70s, I still do, I have family in California. So early in the summers, we would go from New York, we would start in Jersey, then we would go to Ohio, and then we would go further south, and then we would go to California. And this was the summertime. This was the whole summer for us. It started in June, and we sometimes came back in September, right? Time when it was time to go to school. So I spent a lot of time out in California in the 70s. We spent some time out there. But one thing that I can say is that my cousins in Jersey were basically had the same, how can I say, the same uh, likes, as I'll call it, from the ones in California on the West Coast. And I say that to say that their style of music, their style of dress, their style of lingo, talking and stuff were similar. It was just similar. I have family in Inglewood, New Jersey, and Teaneck and Hackensack, and and so their lingo and their style of music and stuff were similar. And I'll never forget how I used to, especially when I was collecting beats and breaks and stuff, and I would go over, to either to Jersey or go to LA, to California, and the things that they were singing and the way that they were doing was totally different. So when I asked my cousin to, did he have any records that had just the drums in it, he would give me some stuff, but it would have the bass line in it. It would have the bass line in it. And I remember some of those groups that they were similar, from California to New Jersey, was like they listened to a lot of War. They listened to Zap, Cameo, the Gap Band, Brothers Johnson, Confunction, SOS Band, Rick James, Bootsy Collins, Lakeside, Slave, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Ohio Players, Kool and the Gang, Sly and the Family Stone, Rufus, Shaka Khan, the Meters. And I'll never forget when he showed me the Meters. And I was like, whoa, oh man, when I take this back to New York, it's going to be something. And so that was my introduction to, like the West Coast type of grooves that they listened to and they did. So let's start off by talking dates. How about that? Let's talk about the dates, and then we're going to go into what these dates mean and why it's so valuable and important to talk about these days. Because remember, we're talking about hip hop. So in my memory, when I think about the West Coast and I think about California, the one thing that I remember so much was these people. Okay. This group had what, and I could say this group had a large part of the groove in which Californians did. This group right here. And like I say, in the 70s, to be honest with you, and this is to be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you weren't pumping this and you weren't, then you just weren't cool. This is what they listen to. And I'm gonna go deeper into it, but I just wanna show you some of the things. Now, this is a little bit different, what I'm getting ready to show you now, from what it is, I guess basically what it became in, and when I say that, I'm talking about this. Okay, so if you guys know about beats and stuff like that, you would know that these are some of the break beats and samples that we were using. And this is early Parliament. This is Funkadelic, of course. And if you look at it, it says 1970. Okay. So, that's the early part. And I bring that up to say that back in the 70s, when hip hop was created, if we were to bring our hip hop to California, they would tell us to get out of here. Like what are you doing? Like to get out of here. like that is just ridiculous. And that was the stupidest thing um to do. Is to have that. And so to me, and I'm just saying me, at that time, California, if they weren't interested in hip hop, they weren't even considered to me a part of coolness. Can I say? And that's just real. This is, if somebody can come and say and bring their thoughts or bring what they know, bring it. Like let me know, because I don't want to seem like this is something that I'm saying to say that West Coast didn't have anything to do with hip hop, because obviously that's not true. That's not true. But some of the things that were in LA that I could say did contribute to a little bit of the sound of hip hop, people don't even recognize. Like they don't recognize these groups. Like a lot of these albums, basically never hit the East Coast. They never really did much in the East Coast. And I think and see, that's another thing was bad about me. And what I'm saying is that, so even though I'm from the East Coast, even though I'm from Bronxdale and everything, when I went out there and I had cousins out there, I wanted to bring my stuff out there. I wanted to bring, what we were doing up and on the East Coast just to there. And just like a lot of them on the East Coast, it was rejected. It was really rejected, because they were so used to hearing, this type of funk. And so, that's something that they were really used to. Oh, I shouldn't have brought that one up yet. Let me see. Let me go to something else. Oh, I could have still. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's start. Go back to this. Okay, so now remember, hip hop was created basically in 1970, and it was brought to the public in 1971. So the early 70s, you have to understand, like I said, we go back to this, right? And that's 71. I think this one was 70. Yes. So we go back to 70, and that's what they were into. That's what they were, they waited for this album, and when it came out, they just rocked that. They just rocked that. And this is the early 70s. So, like I said, by the time this came out, hold on, hold on. By the time this came out, oh, that's even early. I mean, later. That's even later. Yeah. So hold on. Let me go back to what that was, 76, right? Yes. Okay. So now by the time this came out, um, it was like they were waiting for the next. They were waiting for the next funk. And so to say that the West Coast was into hip hop in 76, that cannot really be true. It really can't be true. And so if somebody else can bring that and show me, what they were into in 76 or 77, um, then, because I think this is the one, I'm not sure, but I believe that this album, I have to do the research. I have to go back and look at my album and see. But one of these albums, I believe Flashlight came out. And that and One Nation Under a Groove, and those were the introductions to the East Coast, to funk, to basically, that's the Flashlight and One Nation Under a Groove and stuff. That was, our introduction to what was known as the deep funk. Of course, we had the Ohio players with Funky Worm and stuff like that we heard, like when it came out. But when those records came out, like the Funky Worm and stuff, those were more adult records. It wasn't really for the youth, for the kids. It was for older generations when these records came out. And so hip hop was basically a youthful thing. It's for the youth. The youth created hip hop, kids. So that was a little bit pull of the difference of why it was so popular, hip hop in the East, is because, more, I guess, and I don't know how other way to put it, but I think more of the youth were contributing to what we wanted to do. We had already done what the older people, were doing. We were already into that, what they were doing. But so we wanted to do what we wanted to do. And so I think that's where the connection was. I really do. I think that was the connection. So let's say we're gonna and I think this is it. I'm not sure. Okay, yes. Okay. So the first noted West Coast hip hop record is generally recognized as Gigolo Rap by Disco Daddy and Captain Rap. Now, you notice that in 1981, Disco Daddy was the name of this person. Now, I cannot tell you the history of Disco Daddy. I cannot. But in 81, I'm sure, I could be wrong, but I'm sure that the word disco in his name actually meant disco music. I really do. And it was a Los Angeles based rapper's rap record. Okay. And so the 80s, it's safe to say, the 80s is what brought the connection to hip hop, which is the 80s. So if hip hop was created in 1970 and it was brought to the West Coast in the 80s, then there's a whole span of time that went by. So I don't want people to say, like I'm saying, that they didn't have contributions in the 80s. I'm not saying that at all. I really am not. And I just don't understand why, you know, um, why that there's like a, how can I say, like a debate in the contributions that the West Coast gave to hip hop, because I am 100% for it. Like I'll never forget, you know, when it when it actually started dominating, uh, the West Coast, and that was basically a good time. And might I add that I believe in my heart, and I'll come back to this, but I believe that this, no, not that, this was the introduction to the West Coast, what hip hop is and was. I believe that this Fresh Fest in 1984 was the introduction to the West Coast, what hip hop was. And I just believe that. I believe the Sir Mix-a-Lots, and I think that Miami sound started coming, and so I believe that this is what launched West Coast hip hop. Okay, Curtis Blow, Houdini, Fat Boys, Nucleus, um, they were the ones that did that first concert, that first concert, and then, like I said, it started picking up. And when I say it started picking it up, I mean that it kind of ran with hip hop. Like okay, like whoa, hip hop is here, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, which is cool, and which I'm all for. So I don't want people in the audience to feel like I'm saying, oh, that West Coast, they came late and they didn't do it. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just basically saying the introduction that I believe happened for hip hop on the West Coast. Okay. In 1986, this was considered the first rap record in Florida. And it's Mantronic's single bass machine, right? And hold on. Okay, right. Okay, so now this record actually had Tila Rock on it. Okay. And for those that don't know who Tila Rock is, he made It's Yours in New York. Okay. So this is who I believe um was one who gained a lot of popularity in Seattle hip hop scene. And that's Sir Mix-a-Lot. And he was in the 80s. I think he dropped his first single in 1985. And that actually spawned a great popular I'm getting noted to go to the comments. Hold on. Uh hold on. Okay. Ooh. So a lot of people are here. So hold on. Let me you guys know how I do this. So I don't want to run into things. What up, Gary's Garage? First, give most thanks to Riri, who's my moderator. Much love. I love her so much. And so I just got to give her the shout out first before anybody. Gary's Garage. What's up, Phase? Philly in here. Oh, okay, Philly. That's what's up. China Black, she's in here. Definitely peace. Definitely shout out China Black. Michael Jenkins, what's up? DJ Faze, what's up? Michael Jenkins says, hold on, let me start putting some of these things up here. Um, says, keep teaching, Pioneer, my brother. Yes, definitely. Okay, and what does China Black says? East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, or the South. We are the influence, and that's well. See, China. That's what I'm trying to say in a way. I'm not trying to say that the West Coast didn't contribute. I'm not trying to say that the Midwest didn't contribute. I'm not trying to say that the South didn't contribute. But I think the main thing is they contribute to what? They contribute to something that was already in progress. So I've been seeing lately, and I just been seeing from one person saying it though, but they're saying that nobody's really expressing the gratitude to the West Coast that they deserve, and in honor of what their contributions. So I came on here today to just to let people understand my take on it. That's my take. Hold on. Okay. 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 Yes. I'm going to definitely bring that up. I'm gonna definitely bring that up. That's a good point. A good point. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Okay, so that's why I believe that there's not to say a controversy, but I believe just like how we feel with the Puerto Ricans taking something that we did and we created and changing it and saying that they created something, that they created it. I think the difference with the West Coast is totally opposite of what the Puerto Ricans and the Jamaicans did. Because number one thing that I must admit that funk that was prominent in West Coast is still a part of our music. It's still a part of our music. And it's still a part of our rhythms and our funk. It's a part of it. The problem that I have with Puerto Ricans and hip hop is they took our name our name of breakdancing because what they're doing is not breakdancing. So why take our name and then when you took the name and you spread that name, then you're spreading a falsehood because that's false advertisement. What you're doing is not breakdancing, so you're falsifying what we created. And so that's my problem with it. That's just what it is. Faze, you might want to talk to Lonzo Williams. He has a podcast, NWA Not Without Lonzo. Yes, I will. I will get. Matter of fact, it's funny that you say that. I was actually asked to come out there and talk about the early beginnings of NWA and what I believe uh, gave them. But this is a perfect example. I'm glad that you said thank you for that. But that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So in the early 70s, that funk, that style of funk, P funk, if you want to call it, was what they were doing on the West Coast. That's what they were doing. And so to say that we're not giving them their props for their contributions to hip hop is just not so. But you have to look at the definite timeline. Okay, look, I got somebody here from the West Coast, Def Squad. Okay, Def Squad, West Coast in the house, but we didn't create it. Okay, okay, and that is what I think that's more or less what the argument is. And I don't even call it an argument. I believe that one thing we have to do as a people, um, Friedman, FBA, we have to learn how to acknowledge the next person. We do. We have to learn how to acknowledge the next person. Right. Okay. So Remember when I was saying about Sir Mix-a-Lot, and remember when I was telling you about Sir Mix-a-Lot? Okay. In 1985, he had his own Nasty Mix Records, right? This is in 85. He gained national attention with his debut album, uh, Swaz, released in 1988, and featured the hit Posse on Broadway. Posse on Broadway, okay. And then he later achieved major mainstream success with Baby Got Back in 1992. Now, on the West Coast and on like in Seattle, when this came out, when he put this album out, this single out, Square Dance Rap, on in 1985, we on the East Coast basically knew nothing about it. We knew about Posse on Broadway, and we knew about Baby Got Back. But look at the time. See, look at the timing of that. And that's the part that I just don't think that we're getting that across. We're not saying that there's let me take this off and go here. We're not saying that the West Coast did not contribute. At least I'm not saying that. I'm not. And I'm not saying that what they contribute was not great. I'm not saying that. And we're going to, this series, East Coast, West Coast series that I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to do East versus East. I'm going to do West versus West. Um, and I'm just going to keep on because this is a lot of stuff that we take for granted, to be honest. This knowledge we take for granted because if we didn't take it for granted, then people wouldn't feel upset about not getting their contributions acknowledged. I'm just going to say it that way. I don't think that they would feel a way if they felt that they were being acknowledged. And let me take a couple more. Okay. We didn't start rapping. Oh, I said that one. I showed that one already. Hold on. Okay, I know you're saying that they didn't wait. I know you're not saying that they didn't contribute. I'm just shouting out all of the people from East to West Coast, North and South. Okay, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're shouting them out. We're shouting them out. Faye, do you ever play West Coast hip hop at your jams? And I only heard New York records last time I heard you perform. Of course I do. Of course I do. Oh man, I'm early NWA. I'm Ice Cube. Oh my God, I could go on and the Pimp, of course, and yes, I play a lot of West Coast, but when I play it, I have to have that type of crowd, and I can only play it scarcely. So, in other words, and this is true. This is true. If I play on the West Coast, I play West Coast stuff, and I can scarcely play some East Coast stuff. I could throw in Biggie, I could throw in stuff like that. easily, but they don't want to hear that. If I go to DC, they want to hear go-go music, and so I can throw on a little bit of East Coast, West Coast stuff. They'll hear it for a little while, but then I have to change back to what they primarily like. And so that's just how the DJ world works. Okay, so let me take a couple more questions. Okay. Princess. Princess says, FaceTime. We're not trying to leave them out. We're trying to get our timelines together. It's all love to the West Friedman. Right. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Getting the timelines right. That's it. The timelines. So, you know, one of my friends, and I gotta call him a friend, Dwayne B. He he says some things, and of course he's a comedian, so I don't take anything that he say, too serious. But he says that a couple of times that I remember, and that's one of the influences that made me come up with this. But he says that the the one thing that I have to say that I do not agree with, I cannot agree with the style of hip hop comes from just one certain type of music. I can't. I cannot do that. And the reason why I can't do that is because the drum break comes from all kinds of music. The drum break, not the rest of the record, but the drum break comes from all kinds of music. You have brown people, pink people, yellow people, just every type of music that drum break comes from. So I cannot agree with someone saying that hip hop was created and influenced by one type of music. I cannot say that because that's, if you're a drummer, then you would know. Now, the whole rest of the record could be terrible. Oh my God. I would never listen to anything other than that little piece of record. And so I think people get that wrong when they feel like, oh no, hip hop only derived since funk music and soul music and jazz. And no. I have country records. I have an opera record that has a break on it. I have Chinese records, German records, Jewish records. I have that have a drum break on it, and so the break is contributes a lot of genres of music, a lot. So when people say that, they kind of I can't agree with it. That's what I mean. I can't agree with it. Um, and yes, Princess. So going back to what you were saying, um, yes. And look, see, Princess knows. Yes, Faze does play West Coast music. See, that's Princess. And she knows. She watched me play. She sees me play. She comes to where I'm playing at and stuff. So yes. Um, I do play West Coast music. Okay. Woo, man, I can't believe how okay, so now look. I follow him, Dwayne B. We don't hate the West, but I do admit the media podcast with big voices make it seem that New York doesn't like West Coast artists, but it's not true for us regular people. And that's true. So I think that's why I was kind of, uh, skeptical about putting this title because I don't want it to seem like this is something that I'm trying to take away from the West Coast. I'm not at all. What I'm saying is that our style of music against their style of music and what the change was from our style of music to give to them the West Coast, and then the West Coast take what we gave them and put their twist on it, which is cool. That's evolution. But I'm not going to say that you take what we do and change it and still call it what we do. And I think that's the problem with the Puerto Ricans, that they want to change what we do and still call it what we do. So, yes, Princess, yes, yes, we don't hate them. We don't. We're just stating timelines and facts. We just stated timelines and facts. Okay. Death Squad says, I've never heard a West Coast rapper or fan say hip hop started on the West. I'm late to the chat. Where is all this coming from? Oh, okay. We're not saying that either. What we're saying is that the East Coast, just I'll break it down. The Bronx, Bronxdale, created hip hop in 1970. It got out of Bronxdale in 1971. That's the best way that I could put it. That's the best way that I can put it. So, after leaving Bronxdale in 71, then it branched out in the different places in the Bronx. Not even the boroughs yet. Not even the boroughs yet. Just places in the Bronx. Manhattan was the first one to get hip hop from the Bronx. Manhattan. After Manhattan, it's a cross between Brooklyn and Queens. It's a toss up. You know, I can't say that Brooklyn was first before Queens, and I can't say Queens was between Brooklyn. But after Brooklyn and Queens, then it started going and moving and moving. So you have to remember the creation in the Bronx spread to Harlem. Harlem spread to Brooklyn and Queens, Queens and Brooklyn, and so on and so on. So that's where, for New York, it went. Now, Riri brought up something as well. A lot of times, even though King Tim III, that was a record, but let's face it, before the Sugar Hill Gang, a lot of everybody, and I say everybody, I mean like a lot of people had no idea what hip hop was. You know, a lot of them, and this is, this is like, I'm saying, like the mid 70s, with Cold Crush and Fantastic and Furious and all of those groups, when they came out, already hip hop had already, like I said, spread to these boroughs and spread out in the boroughs and stuff. So, but that was still underground. Like if you went to a jam in 123, or you went to a jam, at Audubon, or you went to the, to these little places, hip hop was not known. It was not known somewhere else. It wasn't. And so when Sylvia put out the Sugar Hill Gang, that was the introduction. That was the introduction. So people, and that's why I say 80s, people in the West Coast heard Sugar Hill Gang and considered it being the first hip hop. That's just facts. If somebody has something and somebody disagrees with me, please put it in the comments and show me why you disagree with me. Because I'm not saying it to say that because see, when Sugar Hill Gang came on, I think the introduction to radio play was what made it get to the West Coast. You see what I'm saying? So we had already done that. We had already done spun it and rocked this and the tapes and all of that. We had already did that. So by the time Sugar Hill did come out, that was the move to get to West Coast, if that makes sense to you. Okay. Hey, Paul Roberts, what's going on? Okay. Paul Roberts says Inglewood, New Jersey is filled with Bronx people. Also, that town was full of activists in the 70s. My friend moved from Wakefield to Inglewood in 74, and he was studying Black history in elementary school. Well, yes. Inglewood, my family started migrating to Inglewood from the South in the 50s and 60s. So my one of my aunts, she bought her, well, my grand aunt bought a house in Inglewood in the 60s and early 60s at that. And so she was like one of the first prominent people in our family to move to Inglewood. And so, a lot of the rest of our family moved to hit Inglewood. And I was just in Inglewood not too long ago because one of my family members passed away, and I was in Inglewood. But I say that to say that that was the start of Sugar Hill Records. That was where Sylvia was. And so yes, that has a great part to do with with Inglewood. Okay. Also, Dwayne B is not a real historian. You have to speak facts, even if your feelings are different. Dwayne usually speaks feelings. I can agree with that. I really can. I can agree with that. I know he's gonna probably watch this and say, "Oh, you New York people, you New York boys, and all that." I know he's gonna say that when he watches it, but I only bring the facts. I only bring the facts. And if he can say something or show me something that I said was actually wrong, then let him bring it, and we'll debate that. We'll debate, because you guys know I love to debate. I love a good debate. I love a good debate. Okay. Um, okay, that looks like I'm about wrapped up, right? I think. Okay, okay, wait a minute. He says, I never even heard of a underground West Coast hip hop records until '83, Too Short and Ice. Okay, well now, let me tell you something about Too Short that people don't realize. And he doesn't even say it. But in the 70s, as I don't know how old Too Short is, but in the 70s, we were recording tapes. We were recording tapes. And I never forget, we had, did a show, Biz Markie and Too Short and Rakim and EPMD, and we had did a show. And Too Short was there, and we were talking in one of the trailers, and we were talking, and he told me that he had got one of these tapes. I don't remember what group he said it was, but he had got one of these tapes, and I guess when he took it back to Oakland or whatever, um, they really didn't understand it. From what he's telling me that they didn't really understand it. So that just shows that in the 70s, a lot of people didn't understand what hip hop was. They just didn't understand what it was. And so that's why it took a lot of people a little bit to get used to it, because they didn't understand it. Or I mean, think about it. You got somebody talking over music, they're just talking over music. That's something to get adjusted to. You have to really understand that. And so that's one of the things that stuck in my head, was to know that it took a lot of adjusting to get to it. So on that note, knowing that, okay, when you did get adjusted to it and you started branching and doing your thing, that's okay. But don't say that it's because of y'all why hip hop was even born. Like, that has nothing to do with it. And I think that's where the problem is. I think that's the problem. Oh, King, what's good? What's good? What's good? Peace. I see you here. Okay. JG, I think Ice Cube was half joking, but also making a point. What point was that? What is that? What, I don't know what that is, what that point was, but if you guys, because I'm not seeing all the comments, so maybe we'll figure it out. But one thing, like, and also, let me go back to that. Let me go back to that. Hold on. Let me go back to that. Okay. So now look, right? No, that wasn't it. That's not it. That's not it. It's this one. Okay. That's it. Okay. Now, when this record came out in 1978, remember, this 1978, we had already done hip hop hard. Like, we ran hip hop hard, hard. And I must say that when this record came out, remember you guys remember I was telling you about breakdancing and dancing with females and females dancing with guys, okay, with together, a boy and girl dancing. When this record came out, that was the thing. We were getting older and we were more or less coupling up, and so that's the dance that you can do coupled up. It's not too slow. It got a little funk to it. It got a little groove to it. And that's the couple up music. So now remember, like I said, the West Coast was doing this. This is what the West Coast was doing. They were basically doing stuff with coupling up. So hip hop became singled out. When you're doing hip hop, basically, you're singled out. And to be honest, in hip hop, uh, I want to say the majority of hip hop, the early hip hop, it was more solo. It was more you go out there and you show off your moves. Basically, that's it. And it's before the hustle and the bump and all that stuff. It was more a solo act, may I say. And so that's the big difference. That is totally the big difference of what the Bronx was doing, East Coast, and the West Coast was doing. So that's the one of the big differences between where East Coast was got hip hop, created hip hop, and the West Coast then took it on. I guess maybe that's the way I can say it. Um, okay, so now see, you guys come in so late. Hold on. Okay. Okay, because I got to see this. Anytime Akeem says something about disagree or something, I got to put him up there because I got to see what Akeem is talking about. Okay, Faze, I don't agree with you, but that's the part. But before SHG, there was tapes and family moving around country. When SHG and the movies came out, HH plugged into the black folks were already doing. Right. And I agree with you on that. I totally agree with you. I agree with you. What I'm saying to you is that even before the tapes, right? Before the tapes were, when I visited the West Coast in the 70s, when I visited myself, when I visited there, they were deep. And when I say deep, into funk, like I said, Cameo, Zap, Confunction, Lakeside, Slave, Earth, Wind and Fire, Ohio Players, Kool and the Gang, Sly and the Family Stone, the Meters. They were deep into that. Like they were deep. Like even if you had a tape from New York and you brought it out there, and if it didn't have some of these artists on there, it just didn't make sense to them. And this is something that I experienced. I saw this myself. It didn't make sense to them. And so, to say, and I'm just saying, with some of the historians saying that it's all the hip hop is contributed to just this genre of music, to me is wrong. It really is, because other than a couple of the ones that, which I got a couple, don't think that I don't. Okay, don't think that I don't got some of these funk records that got breaks on it. but the most of the records for these funk records, the drum was accompanied by the bass guitar. True fact. Okay. And that's not what created hip hop. The drum set alone is what created hip hop. That's no, I don't care who. If anybody got proof of anything other than that, break it down to me. Just let me know. But I know, as one of the creators of hip hop, I know that what we were trying to do was get a drum beat and talk smack over this drum beat. And this drum beat was actually where we could incorporate our karate moves. We can incorporate our burning, what we learn how to burn, into this drum beat. So that's where I get that from. Okay, Dwayne B is a musical historian, but hip hop, no. Okay. And I think that's where we kind of collide at, is because I'm a drummer too. He told me he's a drummer, but and I'm a definite musician. But that's where I think the what I just said, that a West Coast break is accompanied with I'm just gonna break it out straight up. A West Coast break is accompanied with a bass line. Okay. 7 minutes of funk is a drum break, is a break, but is accompanied with a bass line. Okay, there's several breaks that are accompanied with a bass line. Hip hop was not created with a break that had a bass line, horns, lead guitar, piano. It's not that. Okay, so I just had to say that. Oh God, JB had too many things wrong, bro. JG11, he's okay, but not a real historian. Okay, so we're gonna dive into that, and maybe I'll bring him on here. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I will bring Dwayne B on here. Um, I haven't talked to him in a minute, but I will definitely consider bringing him on here, and we'll just air everything out. Yeah, because this broadcast here was actually inspired by what Dwayne B had said. He had said that, and he's my guy. Like I have nothing against him. He's always on point. He's showed me a lot of things. Told me a lot of things. But I think it really had to be said, and I think the timeline is what needed to be shown. The timeline of when the West Coast got into it. When did they become hip hop? When did they start doing it? That's, and like I said, I give the West Coast props before I give Puerto Ricans. And I'm tell you why. So you can get mad at me all you want to, Puerto Ricans, because I'm telling you why. The reason why, like I said before, is this. The West Coast brought our continuation of our music. They brought a continuation of our music. So they didn't go from uh let's say, just regular soul music to salsa. They didn't do that. They didn't go from soul music to salsa and call it soul music. They didn't do that. What Puerto Ricans did was they took our break dancing, did something totally different, and called it our break dancing. That's my problem. And then not only did they call it our breakdancing, but then they claimed it and said that it's theirs. That's theirs. So that's what the problem with me is, and that's just it. I'm keeping it 100, and I think I have the right to say something because I was doing it in 70 and 71. They didn't start doing it until the 80s. So I think I have the right to say that. Okay. All right. Let me see something else. Okay. You can't make hip hop what you want. It has to be hip hop. Simple as that. Okay. Around the country, it wasn't hip hop, but it plugged right into what we were doing. Yeah, and so, but what what was it that plugged in to what we were doing? That's the catch. That's the catch right there. What plugged in to what we were doing? So, again, you hit me up with that. Show me what you're talking about. If your music don't sound like the borough music, it ain't hip hop. No, well, see, okay, so let's address that. Let's address that. Number one thing for me, is it started off as a genre of music, hip hop. The word hip hop started off as, and when you get my book, I'll break it down, and I'll break it down and say and let you know exactly why. But it started out as a genre of music. It expanded from being just a genre of music to a culture. And so the culture is what expanded to a way of life in reality. So I believe that by saying if it doesn't sound like the borough, like the Bronx, I guess is what you're talking about, then it's not hip hop. To me, that's not a accurate statement because right now I could move to the West Coast and I could just throw a jam and I'm hip hop. You see what I'm saying? So it's yes, I'm bringing the Bronx with me when I get to the West Coast, but it's in me. So I think that's what it basically is. Um, Hold on. I would love a show with Faze and Dwayne. Faze would correct a lot of history. Wow, thank you, brother. Thank you. Well, we're gonna try to get that to happen. I'm gonna actually invite him to my show, and I would love to run over some things with him, and because like I said, from the impressions that he says he believes, I believe that he thinks that yes, because we brag, and yes, because we're always definite about what we're saying, that we're leaving the contributions of the West Coast out of it. but we're not. We're totally not. Okay. Gary Garage says, Sugar Hill Gang was the first rap record I ever heard in 1979. Then a couple of months later, I heard Grandmaster Flash of Furious 5 super rapping in 1979. Okay. But what about King Tim the Third? What about King Tim the Third? That was considered a rap record as well, even though there was a lot of singing on there, but they did have a rap on there. So that's why it was a rap record. Okay. DJ Biggs, what's good? Okay. So cool DJ Face, Mina, Be the Power, China Black, J Akeem, Paul Robinson fam. Peace, peace. Okay. Guy says in 1979, I first heard the term hip hip in Philly. Hip hip or hip hop? Correct that if you're saying 79 hip hop. Well, if you heard Sugar Hill Gang in 79, then you would have heard the phrase hip hop. You would have heard that in 79. Okay. All right. So that kind of wraps it up. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. Not a lot of raw drums in those later funk records. Not only later. And see, this is what oh my goodness. Okay. Listen. Akeem, you're going to get a book. That's definite, without a doubt. You're going to get a book. The China Black's going to get a book. There's so many of you guys that are going to get books without paying for them. This is my gift to you guys. And in this book, you're going to see so much of how things happen. Okay? You're going to actually understand what the connection to all of these genres of music have to do with the creation of hip hop. And you're going to see that a lot of the timelines that was created to match certain things was definitely false. You're going to see this and you're going to understand why that happened. And the book is something else. I tell you guys, this is going to be the Bible of hip hop when it comes out. Okay, Mighty Hebrew, peace, 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 shalom, Lord, shalom. Wow, haven't seen him in a minute. How you doing? Is everything good, Mighty Hebrew? He's here. He's there. Yes, definitely. Okay. Now let me see. Wow. Okay. He says, "What I miss." I'm almost off, Mighty Hebrew. I'm almost off. We went in though. We sure enough went in. Okay. Okay. So let me put this up. And let's talk about it for a minute. You guys, as you guys know, that there's a lot of times that I go missing. The only way to put it is I go missing. And the reason why is because it costs money to put on these podcasts. It costs money. You have to have the subscription to the venue, to the things, and you have to be able to have things and do things. So it costs money. And if I'm not getting donations, I do get donations, but if I'm not getting the donations, then I can't continue to bring this information. I can't continue to do these podcasts. So we always ask to subscribe, share, hit that notification button, and donate. And that's one of the reasons that caused me to not come on the air. Okay. Hey, it says Mighty Hebrew, we need a show. Dudes going around lying about our culture. Right, right, Mighty. As soon as you can, hit me up. I'll get you up here on the show. I'm sure you'll come, and we'll get it popping. The first hip hop group I heard West Coast was Herio, and see, I never heard of Herio. I've never heard of them. So okay, that's we know that now. Okay. Okay. Uh-oh. Spanish got lying on our music. Yeah, well. Yeah, okay. 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 Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. All right. So I looks like it's it. Looks like there's no more questions for me. Um Def Squad fan. Oh, see, this is what I'm talking about. Def Squad, listen. The reason why I say the donations is because it's to help me to keep this channel going. That's why I asked for it. Now the book, on the other hand, uh, that's going to go worldwide. That's so people are waiting for the book. Like they call me from China, Japan, from Russia, Germany, England, Jamaica, just all over for this book because they know it's going to. I've been working on the book actually since 1994 or 92, matter of fact. And so yes, I will. I'm trying my best to give the ones who donate that continue to donate a copy of this book. Okay. Okay, the mighty need to check in with SA. The Swoodle Brews have been taking some Minners L's lately, as they always do. Okay, all right. All right, so that wraps it up for me. That wraps it up for me. Oh, wow, Patrick Young is in the building. What happened, Patrick? What's good? I see you just coming on. The Last Dawn. What does Last Dawn says? One of the first rappers on the West Coast were called Watts Prophets. Have to do some research on them. Have to do some research on them. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's it. So listen, guys. Please, let me throw up Riri's her comment. Where we at? Where we at? Where we at? Yes, let's throw that up there. And guys, listen. I love you guys. I really do. I'm gonna be hitting up Dwayne D and find out when he'll be available to come to the show. Mighty Hebrew as well. As soon as you're able to come to my show, come on. Next week, I'm going to be doing something for the East Coast and the East Coast. A lot of us are really, really not understanding who is telling what and why things are being said. But I can say this: a lot of so-called pioneers, a lot of so-called creators have done exactly what other people have done to research what we have done. And they were not there, and they only hear what someone says happened. Now, the problem with that is that if you hear a lie and you spread a lie, then you're part of that lie because you spread the lie. And so if you say you were at a party and you said that this something happened at this party, but you weren't there really to witness it, then you're only saying what someone told you. And that could not be what exactly happened. So you have to be very, very careful with giving information this secondhand. So that's why I try my best to give my encounters, my memory of what happened in hip hop. And I don't want to take someone else's word. I try to give you what DJ Faye saw. So, like I said, I'll keep this up, and I'm gonna after here. I do what I always do. I go to my Cash App and I go to my PayPal, and that determines when I'll be back. Peace and love.